Okay, in this video, I want to talk one more time about a certain categorical syllogism, a very troubling one, and one of the most confusing to grasp as you're learning this. But hopefully, it will become clear the tricks that this can play. All right, and then you can find them and make sure you don't fall into their trap. But anyway, you have a universal affirmative, and then you have two particular negatives. And that's trouble. Now I want you just to look at this and tell me whether you think it's valid. Okay, I hope that you noticed, and well, you should maybe go back and see, but in all the categorical syllogisms that we've done that are valid, the middle term never appears in the conclusion. Okay, so you see I have the middle term here is the one that appears in both of the premises. And it's the bridge term, it's the middle term, it's the term that connects the two. So it can't appear in the conclusion. So I can tell you right away that this one is invalid because the middle term is appearing. This is the middle term A. If it appears in the conclusion, automatically it's invalid. Now let me show you something else though. Let's draw it out. A, B, C. All A is B. Okay, there we go. Now, here's the trouble. Some C is not A. And I can't tell you how many students I get that are going to try to put, and say, okay, all right, well, I'll put it right here. Did you represent the drawing correctly? Well, it says some C is not A. I got some C, at least one C that's not A. Yes, okay, but here is the other question. Is this the only way you can represent that premise? See, that's a slippery premise because you realize you could also put it right here. Okay, and here's an X that's not A but carries extra information with it. It carries extra qualities. It's also an X that is a B. Okay, so how come this isn't valid? Because if I draw it here, I do have a B that is not A. Okay, what you need to remember is that when you accurately represent, when you correctly draw the premises, if they are worded correctly, okay, if they are formed correctly, you will not be able to draw them a couple of ways. They themselves will have built-in limits, and so that you can draw it only one way. So as soon as you see something like this that you can draw a couple ways, okay, now I need to tell you that whenever you have a universal or a particular, you need to draw the universal first, okay? But to see it more clearly and more consistently. But you know, whenever there are two ways to represent the drawing. I mean the statement, and when you end up with these two ways, you see I could have drawn the X here, that would have represented it. I could have drawn the X there, it would have represented it. When you draw the two ways, if you realize that one of the versions is materially different from the other. This is materially different because it carries the weight of also being a B. This is not a B also. So these two are actually not equivalent. Yet they both fulfill the requirements of that premise. So that automatically tells me, hey, I'm not going to get any conclusion from this. Just can't. And that's the trouble of two particular negatives and a universal affirmative. It's you have to be very careful with how to draw that knot, because often you're going to be given two places, and as soon as you see those two places show up as possibilities to house X and meet this condition, as a graphic representation, you know that you have problems because you are not led into an eluctable conclusion. An eluctable conclusion is one that you have no other choice. This is it. This is the last. I mean, I guess the other word is inevitable. You're not led into an inevitable conclusion. So a good deductive reasoner or logic done well this way, Aristotelian logic done well this way, will not give you any option. I mean, it forces you into the conclusion. All right. That's its power. That's its appeal. In a sense, that's what makes it such a strong tool, mental tool, argumentative tool. It's not a very popular one because one, it does take a little bit of training to understand. The other is that it doesn't give the participant a sense that he or she is participating in the outcome. It's very, very rigorous and controlling for the others who are following the argument. They have no other way to go. So, but on a sort of a negative side here, that may give it some. It may be tempting for one to overuse it or to use it harshly, or to use it in a way that you don't necessarily, you don't need a hammer to kill a fly. And if the fly is sitting on a glass table and you use the hammer, you will do much more damage. And sometimes human persuasion from one human to another is more effective in the long run if the logic chopping is done in such a way that it doesn't feel like logic chopping. Well, anyway, these are all the Venn diagrams I'm going to do. You will notice a few things. One, I didn't put any content in any of these. I didn't say like all Ohio residents play the violin, all that stuff. Because we don't need the content. Even if we had the content, we would turn it into all Ohio citizens are people who play the violin, and then automatically I would go all A is B. So you don't need content to see how it fits. That's one reason validity should not ever be equated to truth. All right. And notice also that I'm not going to give you tons and tons of these, because once you get the hang of some of the basic moves and learn how to draw the statements properly in the three circles, you can handle the variations as they come along.